No!
How about this? The U.S. Park Police are...
Start by storming Bracket!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is, of course, my review for the TV series Hannibal, which aired from 2013 to 2015. It was 39 episodes total, 13 episodes per season, and it aired on NBC. This is a show that halfway into season 3, I believe it was when it got canceled, and was originally supposed to air 7 seasons. We'll get more into that later on down the line in terms of this review, but this is a show that I first heard about in 2013. I believe it was towards the end of 2013. What happened was, 2013, I was still in high school. I was towards the end of my senior year, and I'll never forget because I would go on the morning announcements with the teacher there, Mr. Bankson. Shout out to you. He was the filmmaking teacher there, and him and I, we would go on the morning announcements, and we would discuss about, certain movies, and sometimes we would be on the same page, sometimes we wouldn't, but it was great to be able to discuss movies with someone. And I'll never forget the one time right before we went on the morning announcements, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, are you watching the TV show Hannibal?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And he explained to me, he's like, "It's a prequel show that is taking place before the events of Silence of the Lambs." And I was like, "Oh, interesting." I was like, "I did like Silence of the Lambs." And he also said, "Yeah, well, you also are into cinematography, and it has some of the best cinematography I've ever seen on TV. You should check it out." I'll never forget that because shortly after, and when I say shortly after, I mean a couple years later, I finally got around to watching it. And by the time I finished watching it, the season 3 finale occurred, and of course, it got canceled. So that's my relationship with the show. And it's one of those things where the show I loved immediately. Right from episode 1, I knew that this was a show that was going to be something very special. And it is. It makes it its own, and it's a show that, I can't lie, I own the entire Blu-ray series set, all 3 seasons. I love it. It looks great. Maybe one day we'll get a 4K series set, but nonetheless, looks great on Blu-ray. I have the Funko Pop, Jack Crawford Funko Pop. Looks really good. Fortunately, I don't have the Wendigo or, obviously Will Graham or Hannibal Lecter because those ones are, at this point, priced at well over $100. I also have a poster of the Hannibal TV show. I'm a huge fan of this show, without going and saying. I mean, I love this show. It has a lot of interesting characters. I mean, you have Will Graham. Will Graham is played by Hugh Dancy, who does a great job. You have, of course, Mads Mikkelsen, who does an incredible, excellent job at playing Dr. Hannibal Lecter. And their relationship, these two, is really complex. And I really like the way that the show kind of went about their relationship. It's very well developed. The scenes in particular where they're discussing about their thoughts and everything, I think it's really, really good. The dialogue is especially strong in this show. But the other characters, they're also something quite special as well. I mentioned Jack Crawford. Jack Crawford is played by Lawrence Fishburne, who does an excellent job. I really like the take on these characters. Like, one thing I forgot to mention is that we've seen these characters before in other iterations of these books because it's based on the book series by Thomas Harris. So if you've seen Silence of the Lambs, you've seen Jack Crawford, you've seen, obviously, Dr. Hannibal Lecter. You didn't see Will Graham. You saw Will Graham in, I believe it was the movie Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann, but you also saw him in the movie Hannibal. Or No, actually, I think it was Red Dragon. My apologies. But anyways, my point is, you've seen these characters before in other iterations, but I gotta say, the iterations here are just stellar. They're excellent at what they do. And the other performances in the show are also really strong. Shout-outs that I wanted to give were, let me rephrase them, Dr. Alana Bloom, played by Carolina Havertz, does a really good job. I really liked the character of Dr. Alana Bloom. I do think that the arc should have ended at the end of season 2, but that's just me personally. I still liked the arc overall of Dr. Alana Bloom. Really interesting stuff. Freddie Lounge also does a really good job. Like, that character I especially liked. Really gets under your skin, but at the same time, you do understand her point of view on things. So I liked that. I also liked Dr. Frederick Chilton, played by Raul Esparez. I liked him especially because I felt like he kind of looks like the actor who played Dr. Chilton in Silence of the Lambs. But I liked how not only did he sound and kind of look like him, he made it his own, which is, again, the big thing in this show, is that all these iterations, they make it their own. And that's something that is very important. And also, another character is Mason Varger, who actually is played by 2 actors, John Anderson. John Anderson plays him in the 3rd season. Season 2 is played by Michael Pitt. And I gotta say, Michael Pitt's a great actor. And I do kind of wish that he continued onwards playing him in season 3, but I know he had other stuff to do. But either way, I like both iterations in the same series of this character. And to be honest, with how season 2 ended, I do think that they did a good job of making it work with it seamlessly transitioning between the 2 actors. you'll know what I mean when you see the season 2 finale. But anyways, I love all these characters. There's many more too. Like I really liked all the killers, the motivations of the killers, how they went about those kills, and honestly, just the development of such is really interesting, especially since some of these killers are like killers of the week, in that you only get to know them within 45 minutes because that's how long the episodes usually are. And I think that that's honestly a stroke of brilliance, because having it where you care about someone or am able to understand someone's point of view in 45 minutes, that is something that is not easy, but this show manages to do it. I'm not saying that necessarily these villains are like someone that like you should care about. I'm not saying that. Quite the opposite. Like you understand how terrifying they are and why they're doing what they're doing, but at the same time, you don't accept it. You are someone that says, hey, this is wrong, but at the same time, I get it. And I like that. I like that the show kind of has it where it's like there's a fine line between glamorizing someone and at the same time loathing. There's a fine line. And I think especially you see that in the character Will Graham with how he takes everything in. Because he is someone, his character is literally able to be in the shoes of someone, you know, that has done these killings. And I think that that kind of puts even more pressure on him, which in turn gives us as audiences pressure because, again, this show is dealing with the gray area of life. It's showcasing that life is not black and white. And I really like that. That's something that, again, this show tackles that I very much so was interested in. And going to Will Graham, I really like the sequences of when he does go inside the mind of these killers because you're able to see things backwards, like how they happen. And in addition to that, it also shows like a trust in the filmmakers because when they're going back, they're taking all the blood and all the guts and everything, and it really kind of showcases that all of what you just saw was CGI. But it is incredible CGI. It is incredibly detailed, and I think that one of the big things also that this show does very well with the CGI, not only with trusting it, but they utilize it with shadows. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't understand. When you are utilizing CGI, if you have it with shadows, it's going to showcase it better. It's going to showcase it well with matching the color grading of the show. And that's something that I emphasize highly. I wish more movies and shows would do because there are so often times where a scene in like a movie will be so polished that it just looks fake. And it's not necessarily that the CGI is bad. It's just that it doesn't integrate well with all the stuff around it that's practical. So again, I think that that's something that the trust that these filmmakers have is something that really, really works. I love that aspect. And going to the cinematography, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, the cinematography, it's some of the best you'll ever see in TV. Love the color grading. It's David Fincher-esque, honestly. I really like the way that they utilize shadows, the lighting, the color palette. It's just perfect. The camera movement. And I think especially when you're dealing with this kind of camera movement, when you mesh that in with the way that the show's paced, it's beautiful. Honestly, this show is artfully done in the best of ways. I love everything about the show, but especially how artfully it is because this show is on NBC, and let's face it, NBC is a network that, when you think of it, you think of those shows that last 10 seasons, like 150 episodes, and they don't know when to end. They don't know when to stop, and it gets very repetitive, and it feels old after a while. There's not really a style to it, but then you watch a show like Hannibal, and it actually has a voice. It has a style, and it knew when to end. Even though, again, it did get canceled, it knew how to end it. And I have to say, speaking of which, the reason why this show did get canceled, I would argue, is because it got too artsy. The show got way too artsy, even for the people that kind of were integrated into the show already. So there were a lot of people that left in season 3, and so halfway into season 3, I was like, well, we got to cancel this. And I think with how they ended it, it did feel a bit rushed, especially since the beginning of season 3. Feels like it's taking its time. It's very slower paced compared to the season 1 and 2. But then you have the rest of season 3 that it does feel a bit too fast paced, especially compared to the first half of season 3. Now, I'm emphasizing this because on one part, I do understand why that happened because, again, it got canceled. But on the other end, I do say that I do kind of wish that the second half kind of took its time a bit more. But I understood that they couldn't really. The other thing I wanted to mention is, in terms of that, is that there were times where it was almost a little bit too artsy for me personally at the beginning of season 3, but I also understood that with the bombshell that happened at season 2, like the finale, I understood that they kind of had to take things in a new direction, and I appreciate it on one hand, but in terms of the entertainment value, it dipped a little bit, but again, I still respected the heck out of it. Like, I think it's incredible stuff. The score is amazing. I think that the score, especially at the season 2 finale, they integrate a theme that, oh my goodness, at the end of season 3, that finale, at the end of season 2, that score, it's amazing. It's it's beautiful. It's such a great piece of music. You'll know it when you hear it. But the events of season 2, the finale, I will say that there's also some things that happen that are jaw-dropping, but then at the beginning of season 3, they almost kind of unravel. You'll know it when you see it. But again, these are nitpicks because overall, this is a very well-crafted show. It's a show that, honestly, it's a gift from God. The fact that we got a show from NBC that is this beautiful, this sophisticated, this well thought out, this show that has a lot of gray in it that also showcases villains in a very intriguing way. It literally takes the formula of this network kind of show and it just blows it up in its face and says, haha, we're going to make art. And that's what the show is. This is an artfully done show. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend you check it out. Season 1, I personally gave a 9.6 out of 10. Season 2, I gave a 9.8 out of 10. And then Season 3 did dip a little bit. I gave a 9.3 out of 10. But when we do the calculations of the 3 seasons combined, it gets total a 9.6 out of 10, which, if there's like a hot sauce rating, would be the good old ghost pepper rating. So, yeah, I love Hannibal. It's great stuff. But yeah, guys, Hannibal, what did you think about it if you've seen it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And what did you think about how the show ended, as well as season 3? I'm very curious because I've heard mixed things. For some people praise it, some people not so much. I personally, again, like it. But I do think that season 2 is probably the best season of the show. But anyways, guys, again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll get you guys later.